Welcome back to the channel. I want to show you guys how to add an offline reference so you can sync it up with your timeline, and I'll show you how to change the time code in case that doesn't match, and a couple different view options. So you can have something like this where you can check your cuts, or you can view it like this with a wipe to check your reference. So let's jump in and show you what I'm talking about. First off, to add an offline reference, you can only do this inside your media page. So under media storage here, I'm going to navigate to where the reference clip I want to bring in is, which is right here. We're going to right click and we have a add offline reference clip option. So we're going to click that. It's going to go into this folder we have selected down below. So it's right here now. And you can see there's a little sort of checkered icon in the corner, and that's letting it know it's tagged as a reference clip. Now what I wanted to do was take this same long play and chop it up into individual clips. Make a destination folder. I'm going to right click on the same clip here, and I'm going to open scene cut detection right here. That's going to pop open this box. Now if we hit auto scene detect, it'll start going through the feature, and wherever it sees a cut, it's going to make these green lines, and wherever it sees like an optical or some kind of action that it doesn't deem a cut, it'll put little gray lines. So I'll hit stop and we'll zoom in and take a look here. Now you can't really resize this window. You can move it around, but you can't grab the corners. To navigate, you can hit play once you've hit down here, and you can also slide it. You have these menus right here where you can go to the beginning, the next frame, and play. There's also the cut list over here. If we scroll to the top, here's the starting. Here's our first cut. Now let me explain what the viewer is in the middle here. We have a tile on the left. That's going to be the frame before where your playhead is. The larger preview is the frame your playhead is on. And the one on the right is the next frame. So this is letting us know we're going from this shot to the shot of him close up. And if we hit play, it just carries on. So you're kind of using these tiles as a little bit of a verification. So here's the next one. Let's see if we click on our playhead down here and we go back to this shot so we can see if we go back and forth. Let's zoom in. There's a little slider on the bottom right here. So we can see here's our next cut. We get up to it. So we've got a cut from him walking up to the camera's now pointing towards him, and then it carries on with the same shot. And then we have another cut right here. It's going to cut to her. And then if you have where these gray lines are right here, this is probably going to be a cut, but it's not green, so it's not going to include it. So it cuts to him walking away. Now to include it, we're going to grab this little off color line and lower it. This is your threshold to where that cut becomes green. And as we navigate through our shots here, we have some more. Here's another chunk that's like an optical. So that we obviously don't want to cut on. So you go through and you make sure all the cuts are actually cuts, your threshold's proper. If you needed to delete one that it's saying is a cut and you're on it right here in your EDL, there's a little scissor right here, and it's called prune, and that'll omit the cut from the list here. And then once you've kind of verified everything's good, you run it through your whole feature. And then this button down here on the right called Add Cuts to Media Pool. That's going to take every cut that it finds and basically EDL and put it into your media pool. Then you can close out of here. And that's essentially what I did here, where we now have wherever there's a cut, they made it a clip. Now, this feature happens to be 30 frame, so there's 3 different ways you can make a timeline out of it. You can right-click the folder and say Create New Timeline using selected bin, and that'll give you an option for a time code, the name, audio and video tracks, and then there's some settings in here. So you'd have to have your frame rate set up if you're using your project settings, or you can designate it here and make a new timeline. Or you can go to the edit page and select all the clips like that and right click and say the same thing. Or if you have a timeline that's already set up for your frame rate like I do here, you could just grab them and edit them down with the F10. So if we had an empty timeline, select them all. Now our timeline starts at hour 1. To get to your timeline options, we got to go to our timeline bin. So in your media pool, there's this 3-dot menu, the option menu, and I have show smart bins selected with a little check mark here. So down at the bottom of our media pool, here's our smart bins folder. I'm going to click on timelines. That'll load it. And right now we're looking at the 2997 timeline. It's the little red check mark here. I'm going to right click and it says timelines, and then we have timeline settings and starting time code. So if you needed to change your starting time code to something else, you can do that here. Now here's how you can link the reference clip to your timeline. Right now, there is no reference clip for it. So if we right click and go to timelines, you can see there's a link offline reference clip menu. And by default, no offline reference clip is chosen. Now, whatever you add in the beginning, like we did as a reference clip, will show up here. So if you have more versions, version 2, 3, 4, you can file them with that name and add them here. So right now, this is our first reference clip. We're going to click it and nothing really happens, but we have to use this viewer like I showed you in the beginning. There's a couple different ways we could do that. We can use the dual screen viewer here. And what we're going to do is from our on-screen controls, normally it's on source, but we're going to choose the second and say offline. And I'll go ahead and switch this back to normal. Now, if we look, these are out of sync. And that's because our reference clips timecode is off. So I'm going to go back to the movies where we brought in our clip, which is right here. And if we click on the info, you can see the starting time code is 0, where our timeline is hour 1. So let's right click this and we'll go down to clip attributes. And the third column over, time code, under current frame, it's a little misleading, but under current frame, make it hour 1, and that's going to be the very first frame of the feature. We'll hit OK, and then it syncs up perfectly with our offline reference now. And one thing I did with this offline earlier was add a LUT and made it black and white. Normally when you get an offline reference, there's like property of burn in, there's time code display, stuff like that. And it'll say temp or something like that as you're working with finishing. So this is to ensure that your timeline with the high quality media, the final media, is cut for cut in sync with the offline reference. So as you can see, when we move cut to cut, it's good. And then we need to actually verify whether the on-screen action within the cut is in sync as well. Frame accurate, if you will. Now you can do that by looking here, and that works, but there's another way to view without using the dual screen viewer. Now that we've linked this offline reference clip, if we click here in the main preview, we now have these options that weren't there previously. So we have vertical wipe, and there's a little bit of a size difference between our offline and our timeline. So here's horizontal. A lot of people like to see Venetian blind. So now you can step through and maybe there's a door shutting or some mouth movement, or like when she grabs puts her finger over the clothesline. You can see that that is frame accurate. And you can move these wipe cursor if you mouse and hold. A lot of people like checkerboard as well. So now we have a little checkerboard. There's another one called mix wipe. So see, if we go left to right, we go from color to black and white. That helps us see exactly the whole frame. You can see the slight sizing difference with the matte and the picture. But that's it. That's how you can bring in your offline reference, sync the time code to your timeline time code, and a few different ways to view it to make sure you're frame accurate. All right, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.